What is Impressionism?
Impressionism is an artistic style that developed first in France in the latter half of the 19th century and is known for a somewhat unfinished quality, as well as a focus on leisure and café scenes, landscapes, cityscapes, and genre scenes. Like the realists, the Impressionists were interested in capturing visual reality. But they were particularly interested in the properties of light, both natural and artificial. Artists such as Claude Monet studied changes in the colors of the atmosphere as the sun moved through the sky. Recent rainfall intrigued artists like Gustave Caillebotte and Camille Pissarro, who both painted natural light and light from gas lamps that reflected off the rain-soaked streets of Paris. Most Impressionists came from middle or upper-class French families. But because their work was initially unpopular, they often lived in poor neighborhoods in Paris, frequently gathering at the Café Guillerbois in the Montmartre district. The popularity of leisure and café scenes is a tribute to the lifestyle of the Impressionists. The Impressionists had a difficult time being accepted by both art critics and the art viewing public, and were regularly rejected from exhibitions at the Palais des Beaux-Arts, Palace of Fine Arts. Instead, they held their own shows between 1874 and 1886. And ended up having an enormous influence on modern art. Today, Impressionism continues to be one of the most popular styles of painting and sculpture. And Impressionist shows attract thousands of visitors to museums and galleries around the world.
Who were key Proto Renaissance painters in Siena?
'13th and 14th century Siena, about 40 miles southwest of Florence, was a hotbed of late Gothic, pre-Renaissance art production. The art of Siena rivaled that of any other city of the age. One of the most important artists working in Siena, Duccio di Boninsegna, referred to simply as Duccio, is considered to be the father of Sienese painting. Duccio is known for the Maesta altarpiece he made for the Siena Cathedral. Between 1308 and 1311. This piece is influenced by earlier Byzantine styles of art. The enormous altarpiece, originally made up of over 50 panels, is dominated by red and gold colors and presents the Virgin Mary enthroned as the Queen of Heaven in the center panel. Her highly decorative throne opens up as if welcoming viewers into an embrace. A big change from the flatness of earlier Gothic and Byzantine images. Mary is surrounded by a sea of saints, each framed by the flat disk of a halo behind the head. The infant Christ, imagined as a small man, sits weightlessly in Mary's lap. Unfortunately, this beautiful example of Sienese art was dismantled in the 18th century and sold piece by piece to museums and private collections. Some remaining pieces have been reassembled and are on display in the Siena Cathedral.
What is a Byzantine icon?
In Greek, the word icon means image, and it is an important part of religious worship in the Orthodox Christian Church. An icon is a sacred representation of a holy person, usually a saint, Christ, or the Virgin Mary. Byzantine icons were usually painted on wooden panels, but also included ivory, mosaics, textiles, and more. Icons held powerful religious significance. Some icons were even linked to miracles. Towards the end of the 6th century, a conservative group of iconoclasts, literally image smashers, worried that the icons themselves were being worshipped, and icons became targets for destruction during the iconoclastic controversy in the 8th century.
Is the Venus de Milo an example of ideal beauty and poise from the classical period? Or was she made during the more garish and later Hellenistic period?
Many 19th century scholars were convinced that she was an example of classical sculpture due to stylistic similarities with the work of classical master Praxiteles. Modern art historians now think she was made around 150 BCE, which would place her firmly in the Hellenistic period. They also cite the erotic tension caused by the way in which her robes are just about to slip off of her half-nude figure as being more in line with Hellenistic taste. It is perhaps the mystery that surrounds the Venus de Milo that adds to her beauty and attraction. One might wonder if she would be half as engaging with both of her arms completely intact.
What is photography?
In Greek, phos means light and graph means drawing. Therefore, photograph literally means light drawing. The word itself gives insight into the process of photography, which was invented in the 19th century, and involves capturing fixed images through the exposure of light-sensitive materials using a camera. A camera is essentially a light-proof box with photographic film inside. The photographer focuses the camera on a desired scene and then briefly exposes the film to the light from the scene by quickly opening and closing the camera's shutter. Light-sensitive chemicals covering the film react to the light. In a dark room, the film is submerged into developer to make a negative image. It is now common for contemporary photographers to complete this process digitally. Photography is arguably one of the most significant inventions in history. First thought of as a merely scientific endeavor, photography has become an important art medium. For more information on the invention of photography, including daguerreotypes, please see the chapter on From the Industrial Revolution to World War I, c. 1850-1914. Modern and contemporary photographers are covered in the chapter on Contemporary Art 1960s to present.
Why is the Leaning Tower of Pisa leaning?
The Leaning Tower of Pisa, or Campanile, Italian for bell tower, is part of a larger cathedral complex uniformly designed in white marble. The tower, built between 1171 and 1271, started to lean even before construction was completed because of the soft ground upon which it was built, and because the base was too small for the nearly 180-foot height of the tower. The builders tried to adapt to the lean during construction, and a slight bend is noticeable in the upper floors. This did not work. In the last few decades, structural engineers have excavated underneath the tower in order to stabilize it.
Why was Picasso's Demoiselles d'Avignon so important?
Picasso's Demoiselles d'Avignon, 1907, was significant because it shocked the early 20th century art world and foreshadowed Cubism and other forms of 20th century modernism. The large painting, 7.9 x 7.6 feet, depicts a group of nude prostitutes with large, almond-shaped eyes, disjointed poses, and mask-like faces. The painting was radical for its subject matter as well as its incorporation of African style, especially on such a large scale. The painting was not necessarily a critical success, and even Picasso's friends found it to be ugly. However, the artist Georges Braque, 1882–1963, saw the painting and was inspired by its broken lines and geometric dissolution of form. Demoiselles d'Avignon inspired Braque to experiment with a style that would be known as Cubism. One of the most significant revolutions in modern art.
What happened to the Venus de Milo's arms?
In 1820, the remains of the Venus de Milo were accidentally discovered by a farmer on the Greek island of Melos, from which the sculpture gets its name. Since then, the Venus de Milo has become one of the most famous works of art in the world. Many other broken fragments of marble were found in the same field, and some of those pieces may have been fragments of her arms. These pieces suggest that the Venus de Milo might have been holding an apple in her right hand. But, there is another theory. Rather than an apple, she may have been admiring herself in the reflection of a polished shield. The second theory does the best to explain why the Venus de Milo's left leg is slightly bent and her body somewhat twisted. Unfortunately, the fragments found with the statue are now lost. But it doesn't end here. The lovely statue finds herself in yet another controversy.
What does postmodern architecture look like?
Postmodern architecture is not necessarily a style, but an approach, therefore. Postmodern buildings will not necessarily look like one another, but may share some characteristics. One of the key postmodern architects is Robert Venturi, 1925. A Philadelphia-born architect who believed that the urban environment was too complex to be uniform. In 1966, he wrote Complexity and Contradiction, where he responded to modernist architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe's statement, "Less is more," by declaring less is a bore. Venturi's architectural style is infused with various architectural styles from history. A good example is the Vanna Venturi house, completed in 1964 and built for the architect's mother. The Vanna Venturi house is at once complex and simple, serious and playful. It has a solid foundation and an angled roof, and evokes a sense of the traditional farmhouse but not quite. This ethereal lack of uniformity is characteristic of postmodernism. Frank Gehry is also a well-known postmodern architect who built the Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, which opened in 2003, and the Guggenheim Museum of Modern Art in Bilbao, Spain, in 1997. His work is often constructed of highly polished stainless steel made up of distorted planes that form a complex, curvilinear design, a chaotic style that can be described as deconstructivist.
Who was Fra Angelico?
Like Masaccio, Fra Angelico, whose nickname means the angelic brother in Italian, was known for his frescoes. His real name was Guido di Pietro, and he was famous not only for his art, but also for his modesty and his devotion to Christianity. Starting in 1435, Fra Angelico was hired to paint the interior of the Dominican monastery of San Marco in Florence. For nearly 10 years, the artist painted in the walls of each monk's cell, as well as other walls within the monastery. The painting on the inside of cell 3 depicts the Annunciation, a scene in which the angel Gabriel visits Mary to tell her she will be the mother of Jesus Christ. Fra Angelico's figures are graceful and elegant. Gabriel bows gently, his arms crossed over his chest and his wings brightly colored. Mary is seated to the right, framed by the architectural forms of her room. She also crosses her hands over her chest, a movement that both indicates modesty and forms a dove-like symbol of the Holy Spirit. The scene is simple, pious, and appears to glow with divine light.
Who was Animus Bosch?
Animus Bosch, 1450–1516, was a successful painter from the Netherlands who painted large, complex, usually Christian-themed works of art that continue to puzzle viewers and scholars to this day. An example of his imaginative and highly skilled work is the triptych, The Garden of Earthly Delights. which depicts the Garden of Eden on the left, earthly life in the center, and hell on the right. On the exterior of the triptych, Bosch painted what scholars believe is the creation of the earth. The Garden of Earthly Delights is filled with surreal imagery, such as a bulbous pink fountain, a sharp knife with a pair of human ears, figures cavorting inside transparent spheres, and monsters feeding on souls in hell. While some scholars believe certain images are metaphors for alchemy, a tradition of science and philosophy focused on turning various metals into gold. The work is generally considered to be a critique of human behavior, suggesting that sin will be punished in hell. Peter Bruegel the Elder's Netherlandish Proverbs, 1559. Also known as the topsy-turvy world, is similarly focused on human folly.
What is a cantilever?
An example of a cantilever is a balcony that projects from the side of a building, supported on one end by a vertical form, and freestanding on the other. A cantilever may seem as if it is freestanding, but is not. Architect Frank Lloyd Wright used cantilevers to dramatic effect in his design for Falling Water, a home in Pennsylvania.
What is Byzantine art?
During the 4th century, Roman Emperor Constantine moved the capital of the empire from Rome to Byzantium, in modern-day Turkey, and named the new capital city, not immodestly, Constantinople. After the western portion of the Roman Empire fell in 476 CE, Constantinople became the major art center of this Eastern Empire, which included areas of Turkey, Greece, Italy, and Eastern Europe, and portions of North Africa. The people of this Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire, referred to themselves as Romanians and considered themselves the Second Rome. The empire, and especially the city of Constantinople, was immensely powerful, surviving longer than any other imperial power except for Egypt. Byzantine art was monumental in scope, richly decorated, and influenced by both Eastern and Western traditions. Common forms of Byzantine art include brightly colored mosaics, icon paintings, illuminated manuscripts, and monumental architecture.
What is the Doble Carpet?
The Doble Carpet is, believe it or not, actually two carpets. One in the collections of the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, the other at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Named for the city of Ardabil in northwestern Iran, the pair of carpets were made in the 16th century and used to decorate the funerary mosque of Sheikh Safi al-Din, a Sufi leader. The carpet design includes a sunburst medallion at 68, its center surrounded by 16 leaf-like pendants. Mosque lamp motifs can be seen above and below the sunburst. The lamp images on one of the carpets are slightly smaller in size than the other. A trick of the eye that makes the lamps look the same size when viewed from entrance of the room. The creation of these textile masterpieces was a huge undertaking made of silk and wool. The V&A carpet is approximately 35 x 18 feet and consists of around 25 million knots.
What was Woman House?
Woman House was a 1971 art installation, performance piece, feminist collaboration. An actual house located at 553 Mariposa Avenue in Hollywood, California. The project was run by the Feminist Art Program at the California Institute of Arts. A group of 26 women repaired the home before a planned demolition. Using their carpentry skills to transform it into a space for women-made art, and a work of art in and of itself. Woman House contained 18 installations within its rooms, including nurturant kitchen. Performances such as Waiting questioned the role of women as keepers of the house. The house opened to the public in 1972 and attracted nearly 10,000 visitors. When the exhibitions were complete, most of the art created there was destroyed, including the home.
What is the difference between a hand scroll, a hanging scroll, and an album leaf?
A hand scroll is a roll of paper or silk that is unfurled to reveal text and painted images. Hand scrolls are kept rolled up when not being viewed. Cinematic in nature, the images are presented piece by piece. As the viewer works his or her way through the hand scroll. Though usually around a foot long, hand scrolls can vary in length. Siagoi's 13th century hand scroll titled Pure and Remote View of Streams and Mountains, is nearly 30 feet long. Unlike a hand scroll, a hanging scroll can be seen all in one viewing and is displayed on a wall. Though not permanently. Even though hanging scrolls can be rather large, they were not intended for large public spaces, but for smaller, private viewings. An album is essentially a book of paintings, usually of similar subject matter. An individual painting is called a leaf.
What is the dinner party?
The dinner party, which first exhibited in 1979 and toured internationally, is a masterpiece of feminist art by artist Judy Chicago. The dinner party is a large work in the shape of an equilateral triangle, a symbol of femininity. Each length of the triangle is 48 feet long and each is set with 13 dinner settings. mirroring the number of place settings at the Last Supper. The 39 total place settings, which were individually designed. Honor 39 important women from history, from Egyptian Queen Hatshepsut to Virginia Woolf to Georgia O'Keeffe. A long, embroidered runner was made collaboratively by 100 women, under the direction of Chicago. And the triangle-shaped heritage floor, made of ceramic, includes the names of 999 women. The dinner party highlights the often forgotten role of women in history and celebrates women's creativity and artistic traditions. The piece is not without controversy, however. Some have criticized the work for its narrow scope, saying it communicates a predominantly white, heterosexual experience, among other things. Regardless, the dinner party makes a powerful feminist statement and is perhaps Judy Chicago's best-known work.